Hi everyone, welcome back. This topic is going to be a little bit different for me because did not anticipate this coming up. But recently I had a dream, and I want to just say first that the dream came after I had gotten up in the morning and brought the dogs out to the bathroom and fed them, and then that's usually around 6 a.m. and then I usually go back into bed and let them cuddle with me for a little while, and I usually don't fall asleep after that, but in this case I did. So it was already after I had gotten up and then went to lay down again, and then I fell asleep again, and that's when I had a dream, and it was pretty interesting because it was so specific that I was at someone's, it felt like my mom's house, and she lived on the beach. But it was weird because even though she lived there, it felt like maybe it was an apartment building actually, because there were other people's energies there as well, including someone that I had volunteered for at the ARC Center. Her name is Patty. I don't know why she would be in the dream, but she was. And I remember I saw her out of the corner of my eye, and I went to go walk to see where she was going, and she took a side door out of the building, and right at that point this huge wave came from the ocean and like knocked her down, and I ran to see if she was okay, and she sat up, and she had like scrapes on her face and forehead, and so we went back inside the building, and then I felt like my mom's apartment, and I opened the door, and she was laying in bed. And so I went up to her and I said, why are you in bed? And she said, she sat up, like she was laying flat, and she sat up, and she looked at me and she goes, don't you remember? Or no, didn't you hear? And I was like, what? And she said, about the earthquake. And then all of a sudden, this like rush of, I felt like emotion, I guess, and remembering came back. And it felt like a deep remembering. And I wasn't fearful. It felt like, oh yeah, I remember. And even though it was an intense thing, and it was like an earthquake and then a big tsunami that happened, it didn't feel like I was scared. It just felt like whoosh, overwhelm, and just like, oh yeah, I remember. And then I woke up. So about a week ago, I started studying a system called the Silva Ultramind system on Mindvalley.com. And essentially, it's a way to start working with your different states of mind. So in beta, we're awake and we're functioning like normal. In alpha is our restful period. And in theta, it's the dream state. And in delta, it's sleep state. So essentially, this way of understanding yourself, it's going into different hypnotic places in yourself so that you can start working on different levels of your consciousness. And in that system, so Jose Silva is the one that created it. He's no longer here, but this person at Mindvalley is the one that's moving this forward with his family and teaching it. And basically, it's so that you can start going into deeper states of consciousness to, it feels like plant seeds in a constructive way. So for the reason that this felt like a call to me, and I checked it with the pendulum and it was aligned, is that when I go into meditative states, I just am there. Like I don't have a plan. I don't know, I just usually feel like I leave my body and I don't really know what happens, right? Like I don't have any kind of objective other than to quiet my thoughts. So essentially the Silva Ultramind system is in those states, learning how to use those states, I guess. And this came about, actually, this episode is not about the method, but I just want you guys to know that I have been a week of training how to get into those states. So and I know that in the morning is when you're the most susceptible to fall back into the alpha and theta state. So, because that's when he talks about we should be doing our exercises during those times of day. So it's interesting that this dream happened right after I had gotten up and took care of the dogs, and then I laid down, and that's when it happened. So I was able to really, it wasn't so deep into the delta stage that I didn't remember the dream. You know, I felt like it was real and it was happening. So I feel like I was more closer to the theta or the alpha stage. So anyway, so I come out of it and I tell Richard, like, oh my God, it feels like, not like a nightmare where, yeah, you're scared. It feels like it's physical, like physically in me now. Like I remember. Not that it was a dream, but that I remember it happening. And so much so that, like, let's say 3 weeks before, I had received a letter in the mail from our house insurance asking us if we wanted to add earthquake insurance. And I had asked Richard his thoughts, and he was like, well, I mean, we should. So we were thinking about it, but I just didn't get around to it. Well, I woke up that morning after that happened, and I was like, I'm on the phone with the insurance company signing up for the insurance. It felt like that kind of real, you know, like where it resonated so deeply that I was like, it doesn't just feel like, you know, something possibly could happen. Yeah, I live in California, so of course earthquakes are going to happen. So we've lived here about 8 years, and even though there are, I think, like hundreds of them happening all the time in California, they usually are very small, and I, in this last 8 years since we moved here, have not felt one. Now, I grew up here as a child, and yes, there were some really big ones that I have felt, so I know what it feels like. But yeah, so I hadn't felt one since we moved here, and so that happened in the morning, let's say, I don't know, 7 or 8 a.m., I called the insurance guy, I set up the insurance, and it turns out that I had 1 day left from that proposal that they sent for me to sign up, or else they would have had to like go through this whole process of getting me another quote and whatever. So it's interesting that it happened on the day last day I had to do it. And anyways, then it turns out that I fill out, sign the paper, send it back, and now they have to send me back all the updated paperwork, but it won't take effect until a month from now. So I'm like, I mean, there's nothing I can do. It is what it is. But then, you know, whatever, I let it go, put the thing in the mail, go about my day, and at 8:18 p.m., same day, there's an earthquake. And I was sitting on the couch, and Richard was over by the front door, and it started shaking, and the dogs started growling, and it was like seconds. We're not talking long, but all of a sudden I felt like I wanted to cry, not because I'm afraid of an earthquake, but just the cry of, I knew it. I know it's coming. I know this feeling, and I know that the dream wasn't just a dream. Because I don't know how to explain it. Like when you have a dream in it, let's say it's a nightmare, you're scared, but you don't necessarily feel it in your body. This felt like I remember it. It's not like it just came out of nowhere. It was a remembering of it. And then I started to think about it. And I mean, it wasn't a bad one. And I think, I don't even know if they've like clocked it, but I think it might be like a 5.2, something like that. And then it turns out that there's been 600 in like the last, I don't know, 60 days at this one fault near us. Again, I haven't felt any of them, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm worked up. So let me take a break. So yeah, I felt overwhelmed. I felt like, what's happening? Why is this happening? And part of me knows that the deeper we go into our unconscious states, we're going to see and feel and know things that this human body, this personality doesn't, right? And then I started to feel like, well, time is not linear. What if I just tapped into a future timeline and it felt like I remembered it because it's happening. Like maybe it's happening, right? Like time doesn't happen in this line that we think that it does. What if it's happening and I'm just getting almost like a deja vu of remembering that it's happening? And so then I started thinking like, was it deja vu? Because it felt that way. It felt more like I know this feeling, and I know what happens. Yeah. So I don't know what it means. I do think that knowing that I've been going into these different plant medicines and now I am doing this Silva method, I know I'm tapping into something that I'm not used to because I've never had this before. And all of it is to say, this is the journey, you know, like this is it. This is going into the unknown and being okay with the unknown and not being afraid of it. Like, yeah, we can take precautions, and I am, but at the same time, the way that it felt like I remembered was like, I remember it from, I agreed to come into this life knowing this is going to happen. That feeling of, oh yeah, I remember that I knew this was coming kind of feeling. Not like I remember being terrified, and it wasn't like that. It was like a whoosh, and then it was like, oh yeah, I remember this. So almost like if you say, for example, like you waking up, going through your awakening, a part of you feels like, for me, the day that I knew something about energy, it felt like I remembered energy existed, and that this woman that was telling me that I was cursed, even if she was connected, you don't have to use your gifts for good, right? Like you can scare people. And I remembered. It felt like I remembered, right? And then I knew I have other ways to deal with this, and I started reaching out to try to find, or I found Pantea, right? So I know that feeling, it's like a deja vu. It's like a remembering of you. So I went into my records, and as you guys know, my records are my my roots, and I asked a few questions, so I'm going to read them to you guys, because I do think that as these energies are shifting and we know there are intense energies coming in, these things are going to start happening for everyone. I'm telling you, my whole life, this has never happened. So I'm just feeling like it's something that we should talk about and put out there in the open, not in a scary way, because I don't think that's the point. I think we're tapping into this for a reason. So I'm just going to read what I asked. So I said, I would like to know what happened in that dream I had yesterday morning about the earthquake. And then they said, you are energy, and energy is flowing through you all the time, whether or not you can understand it. You just tapped into something of a different timeline, and that is happening in another parallel life. And I said, then why did we feel an earthquake? And they said, it is a reminder to you that you are connected to all, and that you and your energy are part of the whole. It was like a like equals like vibration. You believed and felt it so deeply, and it showed itself to you. So I said, so I should not think about it anymore, as I don't want to draw it towards me. And they said, that is not possible. All energy is already created. It can't die. What is meant to happen will happen regardless. You just pulled a snapshot of it to your timeline. And then I felt like, okay, let me just feel into that answer for a minute. So I kind of took a minute. And then I said, why did I have an intense remembering? And they said, because you already know what's happening to you in other timelines. You just were reminded, and then it felt like deja vu. So remember when we talked about parallel lives another time, and I remember talking about you can send energy to those parts of you that are struggling. There is a part of your consciousness in this body that knows what's going on in all of your lives, right? Or in this soul. But it's not always common that it mirrors up to your vessel, and that your vessel is here to understand it as well. So they're saying, yeah, because you already know what's happening to you in other timelines, you were just reminded, and then it felt like deja vu, because me in another parallel life is already experiencing that, right? And I felt that. I felt like, yes, I know this. So that's why it was like a weird deja vu feeling. So then I Googled about energy, because I remember hearing that energy can't be created or destroyed. So this is what came up. The first law of thermodynamics is energy can be changed from one form to another, but it cannot be created or destroyed. The total amount of energy and matter in the universe remains constant, merely changing from one form to another. So that made me understand that I'm not creating the reality in my life just because it resonated with me. They're saying that they showed me a snapshot in time of that feeling, but I can't change or draw or make it happen to that extent, right? Whatever's happening is happening. So then I asked, so was it that I felt an aftershock of what happened in that parallel life? And they said, no, it was just in another timeline. And then I said, is another timeline just as real as this one is for me? And they said, yes. And then, what is real anyway? Your experience of them is the same. The vessel is learning to access all levels, and that is all. So what I take that to mean is that we're trying to open up our consciousness to more than just this timeline, this body and this person. They're saying that we are here to understand. The vessel is learning to access all levels. And I don't know why. I mean, why is that opening now? I don't know. It could be all the energy that we see coming in. Could be the shifting of the dimensions. I think maybe it's to have more grasp on what is real versus what we think is in this matrix, right? It's only like such a small little fraction of what is. And I think that when we talk about kind of lifting the veil, that means lifting to all sides of you. So then I asked, is the earthquake and tsunami going to happen here? And the answer was yes, of course. It is not yet determined if it will happen in this lifetime. Mother Earth is here to experience it all and is a web and flow of the energy and matter. And as this happens, the physical land or earth will shift. This is natural. And then I asked, is there anything I can do to help? And they said, you already know this answer. And the answer is no. Energy, and when I looked into Mother Earth, I told you guys it's a machine. It is something that is happening and is moving and is creating and changing energy constantly. And yes, we are part of the earth, but we also are not able to shift the timeline of what is meant to be created and changed in this life. We are just almost like we're here for the ride and we're here for the experience of it. But if we look at the whole that we know of timeline of the earth, of course it's going to change. And of course there's going to be natural disasters and like ice ages and all of those things. And it's all perfectly exactly how it is supposed to be. It's just our fear of change that makes it difficult, right? Because like I said, when I remembered that, oh yes, this is happening, I wasn't afraid. It was just like taking the deepest breath of remembering and then being like, okay, I can move forward now. I remember, because nothing that, I mean, I guess when you get to the state of knowing that we can't die, our soul lives forever. It's just an experience. And it's just like this feeling, kind of like if you ever have done the past life regressions and they carry you through to the death of that life, it's coming and you feel the energy draining out of that vessel, but that there is more after that experience. It felt like that. It was like yes, I know this is happening, and yes, it's okay. So, what does it all mean? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. But then I told Richard last night, like, what if they have us here in this energy, which is a little another side point. When I was in ceremony in ayahuasca, I asked, are Richard and I supposed to stay in San Diego? And they showed me birds, like a flock of birds. And they said, you guys will be like the birds. And I was like, what? And they said, birds don't migrate because of weather. They migrate because of energy, and they are pulled to where their energy is needed. And you will be the same. And they said, and right now your energy is needed in San Diego. So then I said to Richard last night, what if we're here for the front line, like the front row view of whatever is going to happen. And that's the reason that we're called here. We're here. And another thing that happened yesterday is I think through a podcast, someone mentioned that 60 Minutes did an episode about UFOs recently, like in the last few weeks. And so I looked on YouTube, and I think it's just snippets of it. But there's these two pilots that are on there explaining their experience in seeing an unidentified object. And it's so funny because they say that they were on a carrier ship outside of San Diego. I think it was 100 miles southwest of where I live. And literally from my house, you can see the water, literally like almost the shipyard of where the ships come in. And yeah, so that's where the objects were. And I was like, it is interesting that that's where they saw the energy. And then one more point, when I had my reading with Kat Fowler, I was telling her about the cliffs, and she said, it wouldn't surprise me if you're drawn there because that's where the ships like to be. They like to be over water. So last night went to bed feeling like we are here for the front row seat, literally. Now, I don't want anyone to be worried. I was saying this to Richard too, like if there was a tidal wave, do you think it would reach our house? And even though we can see the water from our balcony, we're kind of up on a hill a little bit. So I don't know. I don't think so. But at the same time, it's almost like the coincidences of all of these things in this space make me feel like it's no wonder that we're here, and that the energy, and that I feel grounded here, and that I feel like this is where I am supposed to be. And like I've said in the past, like every one of you are exactly where your energy needs to be to hold that space. So it's all perfect regardless of what happens and what kind of changes we experience in this lifetime. I think the goal is to hold that remembering of we all chose this. We all chose to experience this and be present for this. And then when you take that kind of stance, nothing can shake you from you, it's in those moments I think that we're going to be called to be more grounded than ever and be the stability for people that don't know this, right? So I really just wanted to share this with you and just want you guys to know that this is an ever-evolving journey. And I think that the more that we open up our minds to what's really going on in the world and in the universe and in the cosmos, you're shown it. You're shown it in different ways. And then you have these rememberings of, oh yeah, I know this is happening. But all of it is to say that it's because you're ready to see it, right? Nothing is shown to you until you're ready. So I just want you guys to be open as we move forward. And I don't know the timeline and I don't know what's happening in that way, but I do know that there are shifts happening and it's all exactly perfect in the timing. I will link below the course that I am taking, which is really interesting, and I can't say if I recommend it yet. I'm just, 1 week into it, but so far it's tapping into basically the hypnosis states of ourselves by ourselves without the help of a facilitator. So I find it interesting because, again, it's just exploring the mind and it's exploring the different sides of you. So I will link it below, but it is called the Silva Ultramind system on mindvalley.com. But just be aware that you may start tapping into these premonition dreams. So I'll see you guys next week. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe below. I will be posting all of the Soul Tribe chats on this channel as well, so I would love to see you here.